used to ride a motorcycle for a living. I did a bare ass 360 triple backflip in front of 22,000 people. It's kind of funny. It's on YouTube. Check it out. But when my dad got sick, I did something way crazier than that.
You look like you could use a little help. Are you willing to make a deal, John? Attaboy.
Do it. Save his life.
Do it!
Yeah, that is right. I'm the guy who made the deal with the devil. Now, I know what you're thinking. Doesn't this kid watch movies? Does this ever work out fine? Let's just say good judgment was not exactly my forte. I was possessed by an ancient demon. In the presence of evil, I change into a monster, and I prey on the wicked, and I suck out their souls. And you don't want to be around when that happens. See, there's good and bad in all of us. And maybe you're not a murderer, but you did something you wouldn't want the writer to see. A white lie, an illegal download. What about you? And you? I've tried to fight it, to hold it back. But the darkness inside me only gets stronger. That's why I had to run. Halfway across the world. And I'm still running.
Welcome to Superhero Cinephiles. I am half of your host, Perry Constantine.
And I am the other half, the excitingly exotic Derek Ferguson.
Excitingly exotic. That's a nice new title you got for yourself today.
I got a million of them. How you been doing?
I'm doing pretty good. In fact, I got my my stimulus check in the mail from the IRS yesterday.
God bless America.
Yeah. And it was because it was weird because they had that tool to check to see if you were eligible and when you'd get your payment and all that stuff. So I entered it in, and they said to enter your information from your last tax return. So I tried my 2019 tax return, but because it was paper filed, like I didn't know if that had been processed yet or not because I had actually sent it in back in February. So it was before all this stuff happened, but I guess it didn't get processed. And then I tried entering, and because like my address, it was the same address from 2018, 2019, but it was like one slight difference, right? Like, you know, a dash here or there or something like that. So I kept trying different like combinations of my address, like trying to get it to work, and it wouldn't work. And it just kept saying we can't determine your eligibility, and they only let you do it like 4 times before they lock you out of the system.
Oh yeah.
So finally, I thought, you know what? Because it said like, you know, leave the postal code blank if you're in a country that doesn't support postal codes. And I'm like, okay, but Japan has postal codes, but I'm like, you know what? Let me try leaving the damn thing off. So I tried leaving it off, and all of a sudden it worked. And then it said, you know, we have sent your check out on May 1st. I'm like, oh, fuck, I got to wait for it to get here in the mail. Because in 2018, I owed taxes. So I gave them my bank account information. They're still taking money out of the account, but apparently they couldn't use it to put money back in. So, but I finally got the check yesterday, and I used. Fortunately, my bank in the States has you can deposit through the web, so that was easy.
Oh, congratulations!
Yeah, so I finally got that. How about you? Did you get your stuff for that?
Oh yeah. I got mine. When did I got? I got mine about like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I got it. And of course, I promptly spent it. I said, shit, yeah, before somebody changes their mind. I said, you know what, let me spend. No, I haven't spent it. I put it about what it will probably go toward is funding my Blu-ray habit, my addiction. You know, I mean, I've already bought because I listened to a podcast done by a friend of ours, Van Allen Plexico, the White Rocket podcast. For those of you listening, if you haven't listened to it yet, please, by all means, you ought to check it out. But he did an episode on the director's cut of Kingdom of Heaven.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now I've never seen the director's cut. I've seen the regular movie, which I love. Matter of fact, I get into arguments with people all the time because I think it's a better movie than Gladiator.
Uh-huh.
But everybody worships at the altar of Gladiator. I have no idea why. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad movie, but I'm just saying that Kingdom of Heaven is up here as opposed to Gladiator. So anyway, yeah. So I bought the Blu-ray of the director's cut, which I've never seen, and I'm looking forward to watching it this weekend because it's something like almost 4 hours long. So I said, well, I'm going to wait till the weekend, a Saturday or Sunday afternoon to watch it.
Okay, all right.
So yeah, so that's probably, like I said, that's probably where it's going to go because, of course, due to the coronavirus, me and my wife aren't planning on going anywhere, anytime soon. So, at least until this craziness is over with. So, hey, I might as well indulge my addiction.
Yeah. One of my schools, we started back up in-person classes yesterday. So that was an interesting experience because everybody's in class wearing masks and everything.
Wow.
Yeah. But it's a small school. Like there are only like a total of 37 students at the school. So like we had like my class yesterday was about 12 students or 11 because one was absent. And that's what it's going to be. And like next week, one of my classes is only going to have like 4 students. So that's
how did it feel? Did it like throw you off having to teach wearing a mask?
Well, here's the thing. I was far enough away that when I was lecturing, like up at the board, I took my mask off. But I have done it before with the mask on. And yeah, it's weird. But the thing that sucks the most about it is that because we talked about itself. I got one of those like kind of like air filtration mask things that you use for like carpentry work and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's what I have. Yeah.
And the thing is, the damn filters are so good that my breath is I'm breathing back my own breath in. So that's the thing that I don't like about it.
Reminds you that you didn't brush your teeth that particular day, perhaps?
Well, no, I did brush my teeth. I'm like, come on, I'm not a savage. But still, it's just like the recycled air.
Yeah, I hear you. Listen, if you leave the door open, I'm going to walk.
Yeah. I know. I knew that was coming. I knew it was coming as soon as the words left my mouth.
Hey.
But no, and seeing the students in masks wasn't weird because that's normal in Japan. Like especially during like flu season, during hay fever season, like lots of people will just wear masks all day long. So that kind of stuff was normal. That's part of the culture here. So.
But they were glad to be back in class with you, I imagine.
Well, this is the first day of the new school year. So like I'd met some of these students before when we were doing interviews to see like what their English level was. Some of them I hadn't met. But yeah, it was a fun class. This class that I did yesterday. It's world issues. So we actually talked about the coronavirus and stuff like that, and talking about like what did some countries, what were good responses, what were bad responses, what are some things that countries should do going forward? How is the world going to look different after all this is over? So a lot of interesting discussions we had going on in that class.
Oh, terrific! Sounds like it was quite productive. I'm glad that you got back in the classroom.
Yeah. So that was fun. The university classes and my business English classes, those we're still doing online. In fact, because I teach one of my English classes is at the medical school campus, so it's a different organization than the main campus I teach at. And so they called me yesterday, the medical school, and they said, we're thinking of just keeping your class online for the rest of the semester. Is that okay with you? And I'm like, are you kidding? Like Monday mornings, this means I don't have to fight through like an hour of traffic to get to work on time. I'm like, that's fine by me.
Yeah, the funny thing here is that here in this country, I've been hearing a lot of that too. That teachers would be just as happy if they kept on, with the kids being at home and they taught them, via the computer and stuff like that. Yeah, there's a lot of teachers. Yeah, let's keep this going. We don't have to listen. We don't want to rush things.
Yeah, I've actually been thanks to like all the message boards and stuff, and so it's a lot easier for students to reach out and contact me. I've actually had a lot more contact with the students this semester than I ever had before at the university classes.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. because when we're in person, like a lot of them, they don't want to talk. They feel nervous about it. But when it's faceless interaction, when they can just send an email or something, they're a lot more willing to try to use English in those instances.
Oh, okay. I got you.
So yeah, so it's been great. Like I've been able to get to know my students a little bit more. All right. Now, today we're talking about my pick, which was, this was an interesting time because this was kind of like that period when Marvel was trying to get back all the rights that they had sold away, and this was like one of the last movies of that era, and that is Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance, which was a sequel to the first Ghost Rider movie starring Nicolas Cage.
In fact, one of the most interesting things about this movie is that when the credits start, and they usually have the thing with the Marvel logo comes up, instead of just Marvel, it's Marvel Knights.
Yeah, this was only one of two movies that had that. It was Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance, and it was Punisher: Warzone with Ray Stevenson.
Yeah, which I had heard. I dimly remember something about that. Marvel was thinking about like their more harder-edged, R-rated characters that they were going to put them in movies under that Marvel Knights kind of imprint.
Yeah, and because they had planned to do this. They I think Warzone was the first, and then there was Spirit of Vengeance, and then they were also at the time they were planning to do. Fox still had the rights to Daredevil, and they were planning to do a reboot of Daredevil. But set in like the 1970s Hell Kitchen with Joe Carnahan, who did Smoking Aces, directing it.
Right, because Joe Carnahan had even written a screenplay, and he had did a sizzle reel.
Yeah.
For it, yeah, and I saw the sizzle reel, and I said, "Wow, if the movie is going to be anything like that, yeah, okay."
Oh, I never saw that sizzle reel. I will have to look that up.
Yeah, because Joe Carnahan, he's good. I like him,
Oh yeah, I remember when Smoking Aces came out, everybody was like, "Oh, this is terrible." I like Smoking Aces. I thought it was. I love
Smoke. I that thing was batshit insane, and I loved every minute of it. And it had a whole bunch of talent in that movie.
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, you had like Ryan Reynolds. I think Ryan Reynolds was the reason I went to see it in the first place.
Yeah.
Because that was when he was like at the height of his popularity back then.
And a lot of people forget, they either don't know or have forgotten or don't care. Like, I do believe this was the first movie that both Common and Alicia Keys, they were in.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Common plays Alicia Keys is one of the hit people that's trying to kill, what's his name? The guy that they're all trying to kill. Yeah. But her and Taraji P. Henson, they play a pair of, lesbian hit women.
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, it's got like Ray Liotta's in it, Ben Affleck, Jeremy Piven.
Everybody's in this movie.
Yeah,
it seems. Yeah.
That was a fun movie. I got to watch that again. I haven't seen that in years.
I've got both of them. There was a sequel. Sequel was nowhere near as good. And actually, I like the fact that it's like a totally different movie, actually.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, well, you know what? That's cool. But that first Smoking Aces, oh, I love that movie.
Yeah. So Marvel was trying to work with the different studios, and they were trying to kind of have this kind of like harder edge thing with the Marvel Knights. But unfortunately, it didn't work because Punisher: Warzone failed, and then Spirit of Vengeance failed at the box office. Then after that just kind of like the rights just kind of lingered until Marvel was finally able to get them back. And then they had then they did Ghost Rider on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and they did Punisher on Netflix.
Yeah, they had Ghost Rider agent. For what reason, it just baffles me to no end as to why Ghost Rider was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But hey, there's a lot about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that baffles me. But that's another episode.
But I had the same thing going in. I'm like, okay, Ghost Rider on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that's weird. But somehow it was actually a really good season. And they didn't use any of the classic Ghost Riders though. They didn't use Johnny Blaze or Danny Ketch in that. They used the new Ghost Rider, Robbie Reyes.
Yeah, this is the one that drives a car.
Right. But they did have a reference. They did his origin story, and they had a reference to the Ghost Rider. Like, he was saved by the original Ghost Rider, and then somehow the powers got transferred into him. So John Blaze is presumably in the MCU somewhere.
Okay, running around in a trench coat with a shotgun that fires hellfire.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, but see, and okay, having Ghost Rider and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. always, okay, to me, that was representative of the schizophrenic nature of how Marvel treats Ghost Rider, because they can never make up their mind if he's a supernatural horror character or a magic-based superhero.
Well, that was even the problem back, like, all throughout the comics, because, you know, originally he was, and Ghost Rider continuity is completely fucked. You know, if Chris Munn's listening to this, he can tell you all about that. In fact, you know, here's a plug for him. Go over to vengeanceunbound.com, and he's got a podcast too all about Ghost Rider. So,
and as a matter of fact, when we get around to doing the first Ghost Rider, aren't we going to have him as a guest host?
No, we're talking. We're gonna have Dale Glazer for that.
Dale Glazer. Okay, I knew it was one of those guys.
yeah. Dale Glazer, friend of the show. He approached us about doing a Halloween themed episode like we did for Black History Month, and you know, he suggested, you know, doing Ghost Rider, and so the original one. So yeah, we're gonna have him on when we do Ghost Rider in October. So, you know, spoiler alert.
But not to take away anything from Dale, but you know, as long as I've known Chris Munn, he's been like the Ghost Rider guy.
Oh,
you know,
definitely, yeah. Well, even Dale would concede that as well.
Yeah, if I have any questions about Ghost Rider, that's the guy. I say, okay, well, let me call up Munn and see, and you know, ask him about this. You know, because he probably, you know what, we're gonna go on about this movie for about like an hour and so, but you know what? There's probably things about this movie that he could tell us that we have no idea about.
Oh, absolutely.
That's how good that cat is.
Yeah.
But I've always found, like, there was a period where he was a member of a superhero team called the Champions with Hercules, Black Widow. And I said, what kind of shit is this? Even though I bought the books because John Byrne was doing the artwork.
In fact, I believe Tony Isabella created the Champions, right?
Yeah, I believe he did.
Yeah.
I'd have to check with him. But yeah, I believe he did. Now, and it's not the idea of the super team I had a problem with. It's just that Ghost Rider doesn't belong on any super team at all.
Right. But that was such an interesting book, because if Tony's listening to this, I know pretty sure he's Facebook friends with both of us. If he's listening to this and you know, we get anything incorrect, you know, just shoot me a message or an email and let me know, and we'll correct the record. But what I'd heard, and I'm not sure if this is true or not, but when he was pitching the Champions, these were the only characters that were available to him.
I mean, it's an interesting mix, because you had Iceman, the Angel.
Yeah, you had Iceman and Angel, Black Widow, Hercules, Ghost
Rider, yeah.
And then who he wanted I think he also wanted Black Goliath, Bill Foster, on the team, but either he wasn't available or whatever, but he did guest star a bunch. And then Dark Star, I think at one point was supposed to join the team, but then it got canceled.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, to my mind, there's certain characters, but there was a period where their horror characters, Marvel, like, okay, Werewolf by Night, he was able to turn himself back and forth into a werewolf at will, and he regained his memory and his knowledge of who he was, and they kind of like turned him into a superhero. And what was that guy's name? The living vampire, Morbius.
Morbius, yeah.
He was always, he kind of like straddled that line between an out and out supervillain and a supernatural character. You know, like I said, Marvel goes back and forth with this supernatural character. They try to have it both ways. They try to have him in the superhero universe and in the supernatural, but which to me, they should do like what DC does and just have these guys off in their own little corner of the universe dealing with that supernatural aspect of it, you know. But that's just me.
And then they did so when they rebooted Ghost Rider, so they had John Blaze in the Champions for a bit, and then that book only lasted, I think, less than 20 issues it lasted, and then it was canceled. And then after that, I remember, like, that was when his comics started getting really good. Like, they started leaning into the supernatural aspects of it. And the Ghost Rider book got canceled. And then the character was dormant for like 20 years or so before they resurrected him in the early 90s. And when they brought him back in the early 90s, they used a different character. They used Dan Ketch. And this was a bit more of a superhero-themed book. Like, he would fight some supernatural villains, but he would also fight, like, regular supervillains as well. So it kind of leaned in more to the superhero aspect of it, and the whole secret identity thing, and, the whole Spider-Man style thing.
Right. And actually that's when the book kind of took off, because there was like 2 or 3 different Ghost Rider books at the same time.
Oh, it became huge. Yeah, they had there was the main Ghost Rider book. They had John Blaze, I think, had like a few different, I think he had like one miniseries and like one ongoing series. And they had a Spirits of Vengeance, where it was like both of them teaming up together.
Yeah.
And then it expanded a whole supernatural line called the Midnight Sun. So they brought back Morbius in that. They brought back Blade and the Night Stalkers. Doctor Strange got like a makeover as well. And like all these like supernatural characters, the Darkhold Redeemers, and all that kind of stuff.
Right, exactly. That it was like a whole mini supernatural boom going on all of a sudden. And it was due to Ghost Rider catching on.
Yeah. It was Howard Mackey was the architect behind all that, if I'm recalling correctly. And just like so many things in the 90s, they expanded it so much that there was not enough audience to support all these books anymore. Because I mean, that's what kills me about the 90s comic lines, is they said like, okay, so we've got a million people buying this one book, so let's then produce 10 books. And they expected 1 million people to then start buying 10 books, which of course that's not going to happen.
Well, of course not. And also you're diluting, your brand. Instead of, like you said, concentrate your energies on putting out this one good comic book that's already got 1 million people buying it. And then, maybe in a couple of months you'll have 2 million people buying it.
Yeah.
Instead, but again, it's just greed. They say, okay, well, if this character can sell 1 book, maybe he can sell 10.
Yeah, well, in the 90s, that's because a lot of the because what happened was comic books became more of a business in the early 90s, because I think if someone had sold like Action Comics #1 for like an insane amount of money, and then it created this huge speculation boom in comic books.
Oh yeah. I mean, you even have people now. Matter of fact, I have friends of mine that's got like 20, 30 copies of like some X-Men or Wolverine comic with a gold foil cover and stuff like that, because they were convinced that they was going to be able to sell it in 30 years and send their kids to college.
Yeah. And then you find them now. You go to comic conventions; they're all in the 25-cent bins.
Yeah, exactly. But like you said, that was during a period where people were buying comic books as a financial speculation. Mm-hmm. They thought it was like the stock market. They heard that, comics was going to go up in value. Oh yeah, well, you could buy a comic book now, and in 10 years, it's going to be worth $1 million. Well, that's not every comic book, folks. That's, that's certain, issues, and people just went, I mean, they went crazy for that stuff and everything like that. So, I mean, thank God it died out, but I'm also sorry that a lot of people spent a lot of money, on it and didn't get anything out of it. They didn't even read the comics.
yeah. There were some people who never even opened the books. Yeah.
No.
But yeah, that was a crazy time. And it wasn't just like Marvel. It was like Marvel did it with X-Men. They did it with Spider-Man. They did it with Ghost Rider. DC was doing it with Batman and Superman and Justice League. And it was a crazy time back then.
Yeah, because at one time they had like 4 or 5 different Justice League books.
Oh yeah. They had
Justice League International, Justice League Antarctica,
Justice League Task Force, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Justice League Europe.
Yeah. So yeah, it was an interesting time to be a comic. And it's funny when you go back and you're reading some of these collections they got now, and they've got like all these different crossovers. Because the whole thing was, we're trying to. That was like also when like the crossover boom, like the yearly event thing started as well. But yeah, so out of that, it's kind of like a little bit of a digression, a little bit of comic book history. But so Ghost Rider, though, the first movie was I remember the first movie. Well, what's your experience with Ghost Rider in general? Were you ever much of a fan of the character?
You know what? I like the character, but I can't say I was exactly crazy about him. I will say that the one thing that drew me to the character, which I think is probably what drew me to the first movie, of course, is that when you're talking about visuals, Ghost Rider is probably the most visually striking comic book character.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he's a guy with a flaming skull on a flaming motorcycle dressed all in leather. I mean, that's just an image that, wow, you know, I mean, I've seen people with Ghost Rider tattoos and all kinds. Yeah, because it's a hell of an image.
Yeah.
And, you know, so, I mean, I liked the character. I wasn't in love with him because, like I said, I didn't like how Marvel kind of flip-flopped back and forth. I think if they had kept him like strictly either supernatural or, you know, and you can have a supernatural character also involved in superheroics. But me, I'm kind of picky like that. I mean, listen, either do one or the other. Don't flip-flop back and forth. But I guess they did that depending on, you know, what the sales was and trying to improve the sales of the book or whatever, anything like that. But I digress. Yes, I remember picking up some of the issues. It all, you know what? Here it goes. It all depended on who was drawing the issue. Like if it was Mike Plug, you know, was drawing the book. Whoever was drawing the book, then I would buy it. But I didn't follow it like I followed like Avengers, which I bought no matter who was you know, drawing the damn thing, or Thor. You know, I would follow. It didn't matter. Certain books I just followed, didn't matter who, but other books, well, I saw who was doing the artwork first, and then I said, okay, now I'll buy it.
Yeah, but yeah, the first like I don't remember when it was that I first got into Ghost Rider, because I think, you know what, I think it might have been because I was a 90s kid growing up, and so I was big into like action figures and that stuff. So I got into the Marvel action figures, and Toy Biz did like a line of Ghost Rider action figures, I remember.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
And I think that was actually my introduction to the character, because like you said, he's a visually striking character, and because there was a push in the 90s, because he had also appeared in like the Fantastic Four cartoon when he battled Galactus and used his penance stare on Galactus, I remember at one point.
Really?
And the whole thing is they were trying to get a Ghost Rider animated series made. So like the toy line, the appearance of the Fantastic Four commercial, these were leading up to like a Ghost Rider animated series that never materialized. But I think that's how I kind of got the character first came on my radar, was from those two things, the toy line and the appearance of the Fantastic Four. And the toy line was cool because each action figure came packaged with a comic book featuring the character. Oh,
always a sweet bonus.
Yeah, and just like the visuals of the characters are so cool. Like you had Ghost Rider with this flaming skull, you had John Blaze with the sunglasses and the long trench coat and the shotgun and all this different stuff. So they just looked awesome. And it's like any kid would want to have those types of toys. But it wasn't until like and I started slowly like getting the comics here and there, picking them up. But I think it was probably and I'd started reading back issues during this time, also because like I'd come to know Chris Munn and like his recommendations and all that. But then I started reading the comics regularly when Jason Aaron did a run several years back, and he was one of those guys who was clearly a fan, like when he wrote comics, because he tried to make sense of like all the conflicting continuity that had happened to Ghost Rider over the decades.
Okay.
Because it had just been a total mess. Like at one point he was, him and Ketch were brothers. At one point,
I remember.
Blaze had retired, and he had had a suburban family life, and it was weird. And then Daniel Way came out, and he said Blaze ended up the ruler of hell at one point, or it was the Ghost Rider who was the ruler of hell, and then it was then suddenly the Ghost Rider came back and merged back with Dan Ketch, and just like so many appearances, nobody paid attention to anything that had come before. And then Daniel Way came along, and he pulled out this thing out of his ass where he said, well, Ghost Rider, the Spirit of Vengeance is actually an angel.
Oh, okay. which they appropriated for this movie.
Right, which they use in here. And I remember, I think I remember Wei saying in an interview that he never understood why the Ghost Rider was from hell if he's punishing evil people. I'm like, well, that's what hell does.
Yeah. I mean, that's what hell is for. Hell is for punishment.
Yeah. So I never understood his logic there, and he had made a total mess of things. His run was awful. But then Jason Aaron came along and he managed to weave things together in a way that was somewhat coherent and also really entertaining too. But yeah, this movie, it was the sequel to the first Ghost Rider movie. Although, other than Nicolas Cage, like, it doesn't pay a lot of reference to the first movie. That's why, like, you can watch this movie without ever having seen the original, and you'd be totally fine.
Oh yeah, well they even have there's a little animated thing that's at the beginning where, Nicolas Cage explains the whole origin of, the Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
Really, yeah. So if you've never seen the first one, that's okay, because this one absolutely does not depend on you having seen, the first movie. In fact, as you point out, Nicolas Cage is the only character from the first movie that's in this one.
Yeah, apparently, now this is kind of funny, because Peter Fonda and Eva Mendes were asked to come back. But Peter Fonda, Peter Fonda was interested in coming back, but he read the first 5 pages of the script and then he said no.
Smart man.
But you know what? And then Eva Mendes, she also declined to turn it down. I'm not sure if it was because she didn't like the script or because she just didn't want to do another one or what. But that kind of surprised me, because for my money, I think this is actually a lot better than the first one.
Okay.
I'm guessing you disagree.
Okay, well, you know what? I'm not much of a fan of the first one either, because as I mentioned before, I probably mentioned this before, but if I have, folks, please bear with me. First of all, I feel that Nicolas Cage is horribly miscast.
Oh yeah, totally.
As Johnny Blaze. This is a guy. He's obviously in his 40s and everything like that, and a guy his age, doing that type of work as a stunt motorcyclist. His body would be so beat up by now that he would have been long retired or something like that, because from what little I know of the profession, the effect the injuries have on your bodies, and eventually you just have to stop. So anyway, yeah, I feel that Nicolas Cage, if he had done this back in the 70s, okay, I could see that. Because, this role calls for a younger guy.
Yeah.
But my understanding is that Nicolas Cage was just so hot to play any superhero, that, he kind of like shoehorned his way into, playing this character. Yeah, so I feel he's miscast. This movie, okay, again, I'm not going to say it's a bad movie. It isn't a bad movie. However, it's one of those movies that I'm watching it, and to me, it's just a lot of shit was just happening just because the screenwriter, and there's 3 of them, just said, well, something, well, shit's got to happen because we've got 90 minutes to fill up. So, this happens and that happens. That very little is explained.
No, you're absolutely right. Like, I'm not defending it necessarily as a good movie, but I'm saying I like it better than the first movie.
Well, you know what? Okay, the only thing that the movie has going for it, the first one has going for it, is that it's got Sam Elliott in it.
Yeah.
And that's it. And it's got that scene where it's Sam Elliott as the original Ghost Rider. He's riding next to, Johnny Blaze. He's on the motorcycle. If you want a scene that's translated from the comic book to a movie perfectly, that's one of those scenes.
Now, the thing about that scene, because I remember seeing that in the trailers, and that scene alone made me say, okay, you know what, I'm going to go see this in the theater now. Because before, I was going to wait until it came out on DVD. But the thing is, like, talking about things that just happened because the screenwriters wanted to happen, that's a perfect example right there, because that scene has nothing to do with the rest of the movie.
Oh, absolutely nothing. They just
says,
put it in.
because there's this scene, because he says, like, Sam Elliott says, okay, I've got one last ride in me. And then they go for this ride, and then they stop right before the final battle, and then Sam Elliott says, this is as far as I can go. I'm like, what the hell?
I know, right?
I mean,
Yeah.
I was expecting to see Sam Elliott as like this badass Western gunslinging Ghost Rider for at least one fight.
And actually, it would have been a better Ghost Rider movie if it had been set in the Old West with Sam Elliott as the original Ghost Rider.
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, I would give my left nut to see that movie.
You know, but yeah, but okay. Okay, if you put a gun to my head and you made me say, okay, which is the better one to watch? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. You know what? I just can't do it because Idris Elba is in this one, and just like okay, yeah, Sam Elliott that's in the first one, but Sam Elliott really didn't have a whole lot to do. Same thing with Idris Elba in this one. He's obviously having a lot of fun, but he really doesn't have a lot to do.
No, he doesn't. Yeah. And but there's what I like about this movie is that it just. Because they got the guys who did the Crank movies to come in and direct this.
Right, yeah.
And they bring that, and it's not as, like, they wanted to go hardcore on it. They wanted to make it more violent. They wanted to push for an R rating. And that was Sony's plan originally, but then Sony got cold feet. And they they pulled back and made it a PG-13 movie. But...
Yes. See, that's the thing. Certain characters, like, for instance, okay, Deadpool, the Punisher, yeah, you have to make those R-rated movies. You really do if you're going to do justice to the characters. And in this one of the things, I'm watching it and I'm saying, okay, and, they really don't have any, just like in the first one, that they didn't really have a villain in the movie that really gave Ghost Rider a hard time as far as I was concerned. It's the same way in this movie. There's really nobody in this movie that I felt presented him with a real threat at any time.
No. But I do like the kind of, like, usually I don't care much for Cage's, kind of like crazy ass performances, but it works in this because they do, and I think his age actually works better in this movie. And you're right, in the first movie he was terribly miscast, and he had a hairpiece that took like 3 hours to apply or something like that, and it was still very obviously a hairpiece. But in this, they make the point of saying, like, he's been at this for several years, so he makes sense as this like broken down guy who's been going crazy from this curse after having it for so many years. Yeah,
and I even like how in this one they made the Ghost Rider look a little grungier.
Oh,
he doesn't look as slick and as polished as he did in the first movie.
Yeah, like his skull is like actually charred, and like the bike, it gives off these huge plumes of smoke. Like I like that.
Yeah, it's like the spiritual debilitation of Johnny Blaze is taking a toll on the Ghost Rider as well.
Right. Yeah.
Which I kind of like. Like I said, I like the fact that, we see that some time has passed and this has had an effect. They're being joined together has had an effect on both of them. Mm-hmm. Not just Johnny Blaze. It's having an effect on the Ghost Rider because he's a little bit more psychotic in this movie than he is in the first one, to be very frank about it. He's a little bit more,
Well, there's that first scene when he transforms and he's like kind of like swaying around and the guys are like, what the hell's he doing?
yeah, exactly. Like, what's going on with him? I also like how they show how when he gets injured, like the flames die and it's just smoke coming out of the skull.
Yeah. Like visually, I think this movie is a total masterpiece.
Oh, yeah. Visually is great. I mean, like we said before, Ghost Rider is such a wonderfully visual character. Mm-hmm. And when he's on screen, you can't take your eyes off of him.
You know what? In hindsight, like watching some of these chase scenes on the road, I was getting flashbacks to Mad Max Fury Road.
Okay.
And like not saying it's up to that quality, but it had that same kind of idea behind it. And I
know what you're saying. Yeah, I know what you're saying. And you know what? These guys, okay, like you said, they did the Crank movies. If they had been allowed to be turned loose and be as batshit insane with this movie as they did with the Crank movies, because you can see there's little visual touches in there that did remind me of the Crank movies.
Yeah.
When Nicolas Cage is on the motorcycle and he's like trying to fight the transformation to the Ghost Rider and he's screaming and he's laughing and, I said, wow, again, that's a very striking image.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wish they had been allowed to just cut loose with this, and I kind of wish Cage would have been allowed to cut loose a little bit more with this, because when he goes into that crazy place, like when he pretends to be transforming in front of to interrogate the guy, like that manic energy, I love that scene. I love that part.
Oh yeah. Well, listen, there are few actors as talented as going nuts on screen as Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
When you let him go, when you let him just do his thing, he delivers. And like you said, there's a couple of scenes, and that's one of the best ones, where he pretends to change, and he scares the shit out the guy, and then he lets the Ghost Rider out just a little bit, just to show the guy he means business, and then he's fighting and Nicolas Cage is very good at that, portraying that he's fighting to keep this demon inside of him. He's really good at that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And also, there's some pretty surprising cameos. Like, first off, Idris Elba. This was before he really blew up, but
this was before he was Idris Elba.
Yeah. But it's still just so wild seeing him as this alcoholic biker who's part of this order of nuns or monks or whatever.
As a matter of fact, this is one of those cases where, I would have liked to see a movie about him and his relationship to this weird order of monks that he worked for.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, he's that interesting.
And, he's one of those examples of a character who is introduced in the movies that you're wondering, well, how come this character hasn't been introduced in the comics yet?
Yeah, bingo.
It's like there are a handful of them. Like there's him, Moreau. There was Whistler in the Blade movies. And the mentor figure we talked about in the original Doctor Strange. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, these characters that they would be awesome in the comic books, and like if I was writing a Ghost Rider comic book, first thing I'd do is I'd introduce Moreau.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, I'd push. Listen, we got to give Moreau his own miniseries, 4-issue miniseries, explain where he comes from, how he started working for, these guys. Because that opening scene that he gets when he's falling backwards off the cliff and he's still taking out the bad guys. Mm-hmm. I said, okay, I'm in.
Yeah. And also, there's that. I love that 2,000-year-old bottle of wine he's after, and then right before the final battle, he gives some to Blaze, and Blaze is like, it would be good on a salad, because after 2,000 years, it's gonna be like vinegar.
But this guy, he'll drink anything.
Yeah. And also in the beginning of the movie, and this still surprised me every time, and I wish he had a bigger role than just like this brief cameo, but Anthony Stewart Head from Buffy, Giles.
Yeah, he pops up for about like 5 minutes in the beginning of the movie. I saw myself, oh shit, because I haven't seen this movie in a while, and I forgot Christopher Lambert was in this movie.
This was Christopher Lambert's first theatrical movie since Highlander Endgame.
Really?
Yeah. So he hadn't done anything in like the intervening decade or so.
Yeah, I saw him. I said, oh shit, he's in this movie too.
And you know what? Because those tattoos, the face tattoos. First off, it reminded me of you ever seen the Japanese movie Kwaidan? It's like a horror anthology.
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
So one of the segments is called Hoichi the Earless, Miminashi Hoichi, and he has this scene where he gets these symbols painted all over his head to ward off evil spirits, and it's very similar to what they did to Lambert in this scene. And the funny thing is, like, those tattoos were so intricate, they took so long to apply, that when Lambert had to go home for the day, go back to his hotel for the day, he didn't bother washing it off. He just kept them on.
I hear that. Yeah, I hear that. Because those are really little small tattoos too. It's not like they're big tattoos.
Oh yeah.
And they're all over his head and his neck and everything like that. Okay, cool.
And apparently, Nicolas Cage, because he wanted to stay in character as the Ghost Rider, so whenever he was supposed to be doing like Ghost Rider scenes, because obviously they were going to replace his head with the flaming skull in CGI, but he still wanted to get into character, so he painted Baron Samedi face paint on him.
Really? Yeah. Okay. I'm not surprised. Nicolas Cage is one of those actors that I'm not surprised when he does things like that to get into character. Didn't he actually have one of his teeth removed? years ago when he was for a part he was doing.
Oh, I have no clue. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, and I heard he ate a live animal in another movie that he did where his character is supposed to eat like a live animal, and he actually ate it. Yeah.
I don't know, man. The guy's great. I mean, this is the thing. I like Nicolas Cage, Jared Leto, Christian Bale. I'm like, there's this thing that actors do called acting when they don't have to do this stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure you've heard of the famous story, Laurence Olivier and Dustin Hoffman on the set of Marathon Man.
No.
They're filming Marathon Man, and Dustin Hoffman has a scene he's got to do the next day, where his character is exhausted from having been up all night long, running from the bad guys. Mm-hmm. So Dustin Hoffman actually stays up all night long. And he shows up on the set and he goes to the makeup and Laurence Olivier, he's there. And Laurence Olivier looks at Hoffman. He said, "Man, you look terrible." He said, "What happened?" And Hoffman says, "Oh, well, I got to do a scene today where I'm supposed to have been up all night long. So I stayed up all night long." And Laurence Olivier looks at him and said, "Well, you ought to do what I do, when I have a scene like that." And he said, "What?" "Well, try acting."
Okay, I think I have heard that story before.
Yeah.
All right, now I'm sending you a pic right now in the Skype chat. This is what Cage looked like on the set when he was doing his Ghost Rider scenes.
Oh.
All right, guys, you got to look up, if you're listening to this and you're wondering what we're laughing at, look up Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider makeup or Berenson Media, and these pictures will pop up. And it's just like he's wearing this white face paint with like the blacked out eyes and the mouth, and he's got like this weird, like, I guess it's for motion tracking probably, this weird like kind of like LED headset on the back of his head.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at it's like these LED tubes.
Yeah.
Going around that's massively cool. Okay, thank you.
Oh, but
and he's screaming and I'm looking. But but that's how he is. He's one of those actors that kind of get carried away with. Being in a role, and he's really in the role, which is. Okay, let's face it. That's what we expect from Nicolas Cage. That's what we go to see him for. We hear Nicolas Cage is going to be in a movie. We don't expect him to act like we don't expect him to act like a normal person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
we don't. And do we really want to see Nicolas Cage act like a normal?
No.
He has done it in the past. But even when he plays guys that are quote unquote normal, there's a little bit something about them that's not quite like. They're not completely in tune with the rest of us.
Yeah. But it's and this film, it's like the story is just like the story's crap basically, right? But we're not here to watch the story. We're here to see like the visuals. We're here to see Nicolas Cage acting crazy. And one of the things I also like, which they took from the comic books, is which they took from Jason Aaron's comic books, is the Ghost Rider transforms whatever he's riding.
Yeah.
So like that scene when he jumps on that excavator machine and it explodes with all this hellfire. I love that.
Yeah,
part.
I love that part. The part where he jumps to the truck and the truck bursts into hellfire and he's driving the truck.
Yeah.
During the chase on the highway. Yeah, I really like that concept that, whatever he's riding, also gets transformed as well. Because he even tells the kid that at one time. The kid said, "Well, what if you get on a roller coaster?" What if you, he said, "Well, what if you get on, I don't know, like a big wheel, does a big," and now I have the image of a baby Ghost Rider riding a flaming big wheel.
If you go back and you read Jason Aaron's Ghost Rider run, like he details like other spirits of vengeance that have existed throughout time. And like, I think he just told the artist, just draw whatever crazy shit you can think of. Cause there's one Ghost Rider that's like riding like a woolly mammoth. There's another one that's riding a shark. And it's like all this insane stuff.
Oh, like a prehistoric Ghost Rider riding a woolly mammoth. Now, see, that's an image I can get behind. I like that. But I do like that whole concept. And like you said, when he gets in that excavator, because when he did it, I'm watching, I said, well, what is he going to do? And I figured that he's just going to but then he grabs the levers and he turns the damn thing on. And like I said, the whole thing just explodes with hellfire. And I said, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
Now I see where we're going. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and those are the moments when this movie really kind of shines, when they just kind of like lean into that batshit insanity of the concept. Just like we were talking about with Ninja Turtles, right? Like you gotta come in with that kind of like campy mindset where it's like, we're just here to have fun. We're not going to take this stuff too seriously.
Yeah, exactly. And like I always say when it comes to movies like this, you know, if you're going to make the movie, then commit to, you know, the premise 100%. Don't go this far and then pull back and say, well, you know what? Audiences aren't going to go for this. You got to trust that if the audience has been with you this far, they're going to go with you a little bit further. So why not push it a little bit further? And yeah, this movie gets pulled along by the Nicolas Cage performance and the visuals.
Yeah.
Because, the story, like, you know, I'm sitting there watching, I'm saying, well, wait a minute. And it's like the writers just say, well, you know what? I don't feel like explaining this shit. Let's just go on to the next scene. And that's it. Because you're waiting for an explanation of why this happened, why that happened, why this happened. Nothing. Characters are dropped in. There's no explanation at all where they came from or why they're in the movie. You know, they're just, which in a way kind of works because you're just dropped into the story right in the middle of it. So there's no reason for anybody to explain why they're there or what, you know, they're just there. And you just got to go along with it.
Yeah, and you know the thing is too, Ghost Rider is a character that, like, really the visuals depend on it, and part of it is being able to lean into that kind of insanity of it is having those visuals, right? Like this is something I found when, and probably Chris would agree with me as well. Chris would agree with me is that when back in our fanfic days, I took a few stabs at writing Ghost Rider, and it was so hard because you don't have. Yeah, you don't have those visuals.
Yeah, you're a brave man. Yeah, I would have never written that character unless you can really pull it off the description of that character. Because like you said, it depends so much on the video. That's why I say he's such a perfect character for movies. Yeah. Because he is so visual.
Yeah. And in fact, there was and also Jason Aaron did something in his run where he brought this kind of like Grindhouse mentality to the Ghost Rider. And like he had things like gun nuns, right? Like these really hot nuns who are armed with like these, you know, AK-47s and shotguns and everything. That's something you can only really get across in a visual medium, right? If you describe like a bunch of hot nuns holding guns in prose, it doesn't have that same visual impact.
Right. Yeah. I get what you mean. I mean, you can do it, but it's not the same as when you just see it and you say, "Oh, wow, okay, hot nuns with machine guns." You know.
So you need that kind of thing with it.
Because you know what? That's something that's always fascinated me about how there are certain things that if you put it down in prose, it sounds like kind of skeevy, or you know, people say, "Oh, what's wrong with him?" But they see the same thing in a movie and they go with it.
Yeah. Well, like one perfect example is when he's talking to Danny, and this was because I expected to hate this movie when I saw the trailer because I hated the first one, and there's that one scene where Danny asks him, "What happens if you have to pee while you're transformed?" And he says, "Oh, it's awesome. It's like a flamethrower." And it cuts to that scene of him like, you know, pissing flame.
And then it cuts to the scene of the Ghost Rider pissing flame, and he turns around, and even though it's a skull, you get the impression he's grinning.
Yeah. But I thought that was the way that was played in the trailer when they showed that scene in the trailer. It seemed like they were serious. They were being serious. They were seriously depicting it that way. But then you watch it in the movie and you realize, oh, he's just joking around with the kid.
Right. And it's a nice little thing because you know what? They have to establish a bond between these characters real quick. Yeah. For us to buy into that he's going through all of this, you know, to rescue this kid from, you know, the devil or whoever that guy is supposed to be. Yeah. You know, so they have to establish a bond real quick, and they do it very well in that scene, I think. Yeah. You know, where the kid is asking him, you know, all these questions. Okay, well, what can you do? And what about this? And what about that? And, you know, they really do have a nice little moment on the back of that truck when they're talking about,
And then he takes him out riding and everything like that too.
Yeah. And I like the fact,
but when they were before that, when they were in the restaurant, and he sees the dad and his son, and the dad like ruffles the kid's hair, and he tries to do the same thing to Danny, and Danny's like, "What the hell's wrong with you?"
Yeah, and the kid said, "What are you doing?" Yeah, I said, "Oh well, I thought there was a bee on your head." He just looks at him like, "Yeah, right." You can't fool this kid. This kid is sharp.
Yeah, and this kid is supposed like the name Danny. It's a reference to Danny Ketch, who becomes the second Ghost Rider in the comic books.
Yeah, well, according to the credits, that is his name, Danny Ketch.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, if you look at the credits at the end, that is his name, Danny Ketch. So I guess that we are supposed to assume that sooner or later, I guess they did that if they wanted to make a third Ghost Rider movie and Nicolas Cage didn't want to do it, that they would have the kid,
Which is apparently what seemed like what was going to happen, because after this movie didn't do so well, Cage said that he wouldn't do a third movie. And he said, but I think they were still thinking about maybe doing a third movie. But obviously it never ended up happening.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I can see why this movie didn't catch on, because as we said earlier, if you go strictly by the story, I mean, this movie just runs on visual and performances. And part of the problem with first of all, we don't have enough of Idris Elba and Nicolas Cage together.
Right. Yeah.
We needed to have these two guys go through the movie like a supernatural buddy action movie kind of thing.
Yeah.
We need to see them go through the whole movie together. But we have a long stretch where, we get Idris Elba at the beginning, then there's a long stretch where he's gone, and then he shows up like near the end.
Yeah.
Which is totally unthinkable now, but as you so accurately pointed out, this movie was made before he was Idris Elba.
Right, exactly.
Whereas now, if they was making that movie, he might very well be the Ghost Rider.
Oh, hell yeah.
If he was making this movie now, they would insist, "Oh no, Idris Elba, no, we'll just create a new character and you be the Ghost Rider. That's it." And and really, they're like the only two performances in it. The guy that plays the devil, the other guy that plays, the guy that plays, what's his name, Kerrigan?
Oh yeah, Blackout. Yeah.
Oh, that's what he's supposed to be, Blackout?
Well, there are two different Blackouts, right? So there's the one you're probably thinking of as the Avengers villain, but then there was also a Blackout for the '90s Ghost Rider who was more of like a demonic type character. Now visually, the Blackout in this movie looks just like the guy from the Ghost Rider comics, but his powers are completely different.
Right. But you know what cracked me up? There was one part with this character that made me laugh. Okay, but first of all, even before then, so he's working for the devil. He's trying to get Danny, and he keeps failing. And then he gets into a fight with Ghost Rider, and he dies. Okay. Then the devil brings him back to life and gives him all of these powers. Well, shit, why didn't you give me these powers when I was still alive and I could have did, why did you wait for me to get, to die and then you give me these powers? But then he has that great scene where he's in the car and he's driving or he's in the truck or whatever, and he's killed somebody to get it. So he's going through their lunchbox and he picks up the sandwich and it decays in his hand.
Yeah, so he's got the power to basically anything any organic matter he touches decays instantly.
And then he picks up the apple. The apple decays in his hand. He picks up the Twinkie. The Twinkie does not decay in his hand.
I love that part.
I love it. He eats the Twinkie, and he even looks at the Twinkie like he's saying, "Oh shit, these things really don't. these things really do last." And he's just as happy eating the Twinkie as He's happier eating that. That character is happier eating that Twinkie than he is in any other part in the movie. It's a great scene.
But yeah, and but also that goes to what you were saying about this movie having things happen just because the screenwriter needs it to happen. So they need the Ghost Rider to face a supernatural villain. So they just change this guy Kerrigan instead of giving him the powers all along. And also at the end too, when he's fighting Rourke and he can send him back to hell. It's like, Well, bitch, why didn't you do that at some other point in like the past 10 years?
Exactly. If you had the power to send him back to hell all along, well, what were you waiting for, dicking around in Europe?
Yeah.
Riding around. Why didn't you just find the guy and send him back? Which is why when I say call him the devil, you'll notice in my voice I said, well, the devil, whatever, because, to me, in my conception, this guy isn't the devil. He's just like some minor demon that got loose, and he's convinced everybody that he's the devil.
Well, that's that does actually track with the comics, because there is this thing in the comics where so many characters have called themselves the devil, and in truth, they're not actually like the one true devil, but they're just like demonic beings who claim they're the one true devil.
Yeah, and that and that's who I feel this guy is. He's like a minor gray demon, that has convinced people that he's the actual devil. Because even when Kerrigan gets killed, so he gets killed. So you know what? So you just go into hell and you pull out another demon to come and you send him after the Ghost Rider. What do you need this guy for?
Yeah.
He done got killed. Usefulness over with. Why even spend some of your power bringing him back to life? And we even see that when he brings him back to life, it's kind of debilitating because the left side of his face like scrunches up and his eye gets bloodshot.
Yeah.
Okay, now if you're the devil, why is it taking you such effort to bring this guy back to life?
Yeah. Well, they do have that thing where they say that while he's in human form, and he also says, it's like a flamethrower made out of paper mache, right? The container can't handle all that power, which is why he was Danny in the first place.
Yeah, and there's even a part where Nicolas Cage in the voiceover said, yeah, well, why would the devil walk around in human form? I don't know. I don't think even he knows, which is, to me, another way of the screenwriters just saying, you know what, just go with it.
Yeah.
Keep typing. Okay, here we go.
And also, did you notice some of the forms they showed the devil has taken over the years?
Yeah.
And you got like Dracula, you got John Wayne Gacy, and then you got Jerry Springer.
Jerry Springer, that was hilarious. Springer, and they had the guy from the album cover.
Yeah.
The guy who's on fire.
You know what? I love those. I love those animated segments they do in this movie. Like they're really just kind of I don't know, but yeah, they're like just the way they just play around with these animated segments. I love those. They give you all the information you need without slowing down the movie.
Yeah, they're nice little bridges that, it's not stopping the movie dead to give you this information, and it's giving you something interesting to look at.
Right.
The little animated things, which is a callback to the comic book roots of the movie, of course. But like you said, it's a nice little, way to bridge and give us information and give us something interesting to look at, and it doesn't slow down anything, which to me is the main thing, that we, the main thrust of whatever story we have is still going forward.
Yeah. And so one thing I liked, even though they wanted to get Peter Fonda back, it does kind of work better that they didn't get him back, because that plays with that tracks with the idea that he keeps Mephisto has to keep him inhabiting different bodies.
Yeah, because it's touched upon that he just jumped from body to body. Right. So he like burned out the Peter Fonda body, so he found another one. Yeah,
but like then there's also that moment when they show a flashback to when he made the deal, and it's Rourke who's speaking to him. So that's one of those moments where is this a sequel, or are they just basically rebooting it?
Or, you know what, they probably couldn't get Peter Fonda permission, because don't they have to get permission from the people, like to use their image in a sequel and the flashbacks and stuff like that?
Yeah, but see, my thing is like, just don't show them at all then.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, I see where you're going. Yeah. If you're going to do that, either explain it or just don't do it at all.
Right, yeah. So that's a little bit weird to me, and that's another one of those many moments. Just like the fact that Nicolas Cage no longer has his bad Southern accent that he had in the first movie.
Oh no! Oh yeah. Well, like I mentioned before, like when we were talking about this in the last episode, I believe, and we touched about Nicolas Cage has a bad habit of that when he's lazy and he doesn't feel like doing any kind of characterization, he falls back on doing Elvis.
Right. Yeah.
Now, to me, the only time that worked, but he actually did build the character in that movie, and that was Con Air.
Yeah, but even still, like that movie, Con Air is one of those movies where I would change nothing about that movie except for the main actor. Like everything else about that movie is perfect, but it's just Nicolas Cage. Like, and you know what I kind of would have liked to see is Nicolas Cage and John Cusack in that movie switched roles, where John Cusack was the guy who was on the plane.
If I was doing Con Air, I would not have the Nicolas Cage character at all, because you know who the real characters of that movie is. This plane full of loonies.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Now, what the movie should have been was that, okay, because they've been hired by the Colombian drug lord. Mm-hmm. I mean, to spring them.
Right.
And that's what the whole thing is about. Okay, so they get to South America, they fly to wherever he's going, and then the drug lord double crosses them. Mm-hmm. So now John Malkovich and these loonies, they of course go out for revenge, and they take revenge on, the drug lord and go out Wild Bunch style.
Oh yeah, I would watch that movie too. That would have been a better movie. But I'm saying if we were just keeping like the same script, then that's what I would have had John Cusack play the hero character instead. It
would have been more interesting. Yeah, you're right.
And I would have had Nicolas Cage play because Nicolas Cage as this this government official who wears socks with his sandals or whatever, like that would fit Nicolas Cage's personality. I could see him playing a character like that.
Yeah. I can see that him and John Cusack, because John Cusack can play anything.
Oh yeah. And he's one of those actors who just like he's been great in so many different roles, but he's never had like I don't think he's had like a lot of chances to really kind of push that envelope. But like you see him in something like Grosse Point Blank, where he's playing a depressed hitman, and then you see him in Identity, where he's playing the I can't remember the ex-cop, the limousine.
I love that movie.
Yeah, that movie is so good. We just rewatched it about like a month or two ago, and it's so good.
Oh my God, I love that movie. I love that movie so much. But John Cusack has never. You know what? Matter of fact, now I think about it, he's never really gotten a chance to play an action movie.
No, I mean the closest he ever really came is Grosse Point Blank.
Grosse Point Blank, yeah.
Which it shows that he's got the potential in it.
But he never had a chance to be in something like a Lethal Weapon or a Die Hard or something like that. Which I think, and something, I could see him in Die Hard.
Oh yeah,
playing the Bruce Willis part. Yeah.
So yeah, if he was in Con Air, I would have loved to see him as like he wasn't, but I would have loved to see him as the main actor instead of Nicolas Cage.
You do know that right now all the Con Air fans are cursing,
probably. Like, look, don't get me wrong, I love Con Air. It's a great movie.
I like Con. You know what? It's not okay. I don't hold it in as high regard as a lot of other people do, mm-hmm. but I like it because again, there's so much talent that's in that movie.
Yeah. Well, the thing about Con Air is that you've got all these crazy actors just like going nuts, and then you've got the craziest actor of all, and you're making him play a straight-laced hero. Yeah,
exactly right. Where he would be at home just going nuts with the rest of these people, but he's got to play the same one.
Yeah, and that just doesn't work for Nicolas Cage.
No, not anymore.
which also was one of the failings of the first Ghost Rider movie too, because that was an origin story, and like you said, you don't buy Nicolas Cage as being this young stunt cyclist and you don't buy any of that stuff. You don't buy him as someone who's like just discovering this crazy world, but you buy him as someone who has been in this world for several years.
Okay, yeah. Okay, which goes back to why you say this movie for you is better than the first one.
Yeah,
right. Because he's been in this world for a while, and we can but like and like I said, he does stupid things like what was that thing I really hated, where he's like drinking the jelly beans out of a martini glass. What is that all about? Yeah, like I said, that's him trying to build a character. and not really building a real character. He's throwing in all these different quirks.
Right.
To try to make a character. And it does, like, I think he sings, what is it, The Carpenters before he goes on, before he has to do the jump?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, this is not a personality. These are quirks.
Right.
So that's another, And like I said, I just cannot buy a guy that age still being in that business.
Yeah, definitely not.
This is the guy that would have long ago got a job as a commentator, or he's going around the conventions, or he's doing, mall openings.
Right.
Or, he's trading on the success he had when he was younger.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got his own toy line, stuff like that. Yeah, he's not still jumping over 20 cars and all that other. No.
And you also can't buy Eva Mendes as like his childhood girlfriend or whatever.
I will hear nothing bad about Eva Mendes.
Oh, I'm saying nothing bad at her at all. I'm saying like that it's just, it's obvious that they could not have grown up together.
Well, there's no chemistry between them.
That too.
Yeah, there's zero chemistry. You look at it, you just don't buy it. Yeah, you don't buy it. Not at all.
But one thing I think that the first movie did do better was the bike looked a lot better in the first movie. Just like the old, not the scenes when it's in action, but I mean just like the overall design, because that had like much more of like a supernatural design, like it was like lots of skulls and chains involved in the design. Whereas this is just mostly a regular bike that just has flaming wheels.
Yeah, flaming wheels, and it's got the smoke and stuff like that. Right. Yeah, I think that, if you're going to have the Ghost Rider ride a motorcycle, it's got to be one with the skulls and all that other kind of stuff hanging off of it. Although this one, I do like this one because it's obviously a bike that's built for power.
Yeah.
This thing looks like it could go through a brick wall, without a scratch.
Yeah.
That's what I like about it. This thing obviously was made for power.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, what do you think of Ciarán Hinds as Rourke?
Meh.
Okay.
Meh. I mean, and I do know this actor. I've seen him in other things.
Well, he was the voice of Steppenwolf in Justice League.
Yeah, and he's good.
Yeah.
He's good, but this is a script that really doesn't give him anything to do. Right. So it's not his fault, because there's really nothing for him to do except play, how can I put this? Okay, he's the bad guy simply because the movie needs a bad guy.
Yeah.
But there's nothing that there's nothing that would make you watch this movie and then after that say, oh man, wasn't that, he was a hell of a bad guy, wasn't he? He was awful. There's nothing in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I said, this movie, just like the first one, it doesn't really there's no villains in there that I was really convinced Ghost Rider ever had a problem with.
No, like even Blackout, he managed to take him out pretty easily.
Yeah. He just, there's a scene where he's fighting with all of the gangsters, the gunmen. There's like 20 or 30 of them. But even when they're shooting him with rockets, there's one brief scene where they shoot him with the rocket and he goes up in the air.
Yeah,
but then it separates and he falls away. And then when he comes out of the hole, there's a pit he's falling into, and he climbs out. And then that's when we see that the flames have gone out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just the skull is smoking, and then the guys are shooting him with the machine guns, and he's jerking around, and the bullets are hitting him, but it's obviously not doing any damage.
Right.
So I never felt like Ghost Rider was in any danger at any point in this movie.
Yeah, and but one thing I did like that they did in this movie is they made the angel thing make a kind of sense, because they said that he was an angel of justice, but then he got captured by hell, and he was like shown and basically driven insane, so that his desire for justice became a thirst for vengeance instead. So that was something that they didn't do in the comics. They just said that the spirits of vengeance are are tools of heaven instead of hell, which never made any sense with everything we've seen in the decades before. But the way they worked it in the movie where like, okay, well, hell captured him and then tortured him and made him see like all of humanity's inhumanity, and that kind of perverted him into becoming a spirit of vengeance. That made a lot of sense, and I thought they handled that really well.
And the problem with making him a spirit of vengeance, since he was driven crazy, he didn't differentiate between different types of evil.
Right.
Like, in other words, if you told a little white lie, that was just as bad as if you committed murder.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a problem when you're a spirit of vengeance, because, you're supposed to temper vengeance with justice. They're not the same thing.
Right.
And and Nicolas Cage even has a little dialogue about that where he says, yeah, well, you know what? I could be just as dangerous to you, because all the Ghost Rider is going to do is just punish you for whatever sins you did, no matter how small they are. So if you've told just like a little white lie, he doesn't care.
Yeah.
And
that was a nice, like, that's one of those aspects that they throw in, but then they kind of like leave it to the wayside. Like, it's not really touched on at all after that.
Yeah. They never like, what's that one part? There's that one part, okay, because the deal that Idris Elba, his character Moreau, makes with Johnny Blaze, he says, okay, well, if you rescue this kid Danny, he said, I'm going to take you someplace where you'll be separated from the Ghost Rider forever. Okay, so he takes him to this place. He just takes him to this underground catacombs where, they go to the wine cellar and, they have a couple of drinks. And then he takes him in this room and he just goes in the room. It turns white. We see images of the Ghost Rider and Johnny and blah, blah, blah. And just like that, okay, the Ghost Rider is gone. We're never told how this happens.
Right.
Or, well, again, it just happens because the plot needs for it to happen to keep moving along. It's never told. And then after his powers are taken away, the kid gives it back to him.
Yeah.
Again, because since we're never exactly told what this kid can do and what he can't do, well, presumably he can do anything then.
Right. He's a MacGuffin, basically.
Yeah. Bingo. There you go. Yeah. So again, it's something that happens simply because, okay, we need for this to happen in order for the plot to keep moving.
Yeah.
Don't worry about why it happens. No, nothing to see here. Keep moving along.
Yeah. But, to the movie's credit, it doesn't waste time dwelling too much on that stuff so that you're not thinking about it as you're watching the movie, because it's moving pretty quickly to the next scene.
Well, something. Okay. I will say this in its defense. If you're the type of person that really doesn't need a whole lot of explanation or plot exposition and everything like that, you just want the movie to keep moving along, this is perfect.
Yeah.
Because this movie does not stop to explain anything, really. It just keeps going from one action scene to the next based on, and, you got the visuals and everything. So if you want good visual action scenes, you're going to get it from this movie because the action scenes are great.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They are. The action scenes are good. Really good.
And that's something I think that Neville Dean and Taylor, they understood that Mark Steven Johnson, who directed the first one, didn't quite understand, is that, Ghost Rider is like a Grindhouse type thing. You should be treating it as like a Grindhouse thing, where you're just jumping from one thing to the next and you're keeping the action moving.
And and you know what? You're absolutely right. I didn't think about it, but you're right. This movie definitely does have a Grindhouse feel. I could easily have seen this. I could easily imagine myself back in the 80s going to see this on 42nd Street and sitting in the 42nd Street Grindhouse and seeing it. Because even watching it in HD, it's got that kind of grungy look to it.
Yeah. Especially with the changes they made to the Ghost Rider design with like the charred skull and the smoke and all that.
Right. Like I said, one thing that I like is that he's not as slick and as polished in this one as he is in the first, movie. Yeah. I like how when, he, like there's little flakes of ash that are coming off of his leather jacket as he moves.
Yeah.
And
like the jacket itself is like very kind of grungy and stuff like that.
Yeah. He looks grungy.
Yeah.
And, I like that look for him.
Well, it totally fits for this character. Like, a character like the Ghost Rider should not be looking all clean and pristine.
Nah, he shouldn't.
And in fact, you know what I want to see now that Marvel's got the rights back? And if Marvel, Kevin Feige doesn't need to listen to my advice. He's doing just fine on his own. But if he wanted my advice, I would say do a Marvel Knights, thing. Do like a series of like Marvel Knights movies where you have like a Ghost Rider, like a Grindhouse Ghost Rider movie with like directed by someone like Robert Rodriguez.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Robert Rodriguez would be perfect for this
Oh
type.
hell yeah!
Or even get these guys back that did. I mean, this one. I'd love to see them take another shot at.
Oh
this.
yeah, I would love to see them just be able to cut loose. But apparently they split after this movie. Like they haven't done any partnerships since then.
Really?
Yeah,
oh,
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it was amicable or if it was because of this movie or what. But yeah, they split after doing this movie.
Okay. Well, it's a shame because, like I said, the sense of the Grindhouse sensibility of this movie, yeah, it does fit Ghost Rider.
Oh yeah.
And if they were still together, just based on this one, I would like to see them take another crack at.
Oh wow! In fact, apparently I didn't know this, but Mark Neveldine, he's married to Alison Lohman. She was in she was in Matchstick Men and Drag Me to Hell.
Okay.
So I just a little bit of trivia I know because I was trying to see if their IMDb said why they split up.
I saw Drag Me to Hell was good.
Oh, that was an awesome movie. In fact, you know what? There's another guy who could do a Ghost Rider movie is Sam Raimi.
Oh, absolutely. Isn't he what's he doing now? Isn't he doing the next Doctor Strange movie?
Yeah, he's gonna be doing in the Multiverse of Madness, which is perfect for him because he said that next to Spider-Man, Doctor Strange is like his favorite character.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's gonna be. I'm really looking forward to seeing that because like I like Scott Derrickson a lot, but you're getting Sam Raimi doing a comic book movie, but more than that, he's doing a comic book horror movie. I mean, that's his wheelhouse.
Yeah, that's right. That's right in his line of country. So yeah, I mean, listen, like you said, no disrespect to the other guy, but if you can get Sam Raimi, well, why not?
Right. Well, it reminds me of something. It's similar to something that Steven Soderbergh said when he said like he's got a Don Cheadle rule, which if you can put Don Cheadle in your movie, you put Don Cheadle in your movie.
Bingo. Absolutely, no question.
Yeah. All right. So we have any final thoughts about Spirit of Vengeance?
Only that, you know what, folks, as always, I always say, don't let my, grumpy old man comments dissuade you from seeing, any movie that I talk about, even if I talk bad about it. And you know what? This is not a bad movie. Mm-hmm. First of all, let me get that clear out the way. This is not a bad movie. What it is it's an undemanding movie. Mm-hmm. But if you are a Ghost Rider fan and you haven't seen it, or if you're a Marvel superhero fan and you haven't seen it, if you're a Nicolas Cage fan and you haven't seen it, this is perfectly, worth your time. If you want to, especially now when we're all quarantined and staying home, if you haven't seen it and you want to check it out, yeah, I say by all means, give it. Just be advised that it's not a demanding movie. It requires nothing of you but that you sit there and watch it. And if that's what you're in the mood for, hey, go for it. Because sometimes that's what you're in the mood for. You're in the mood to do nothing but just sit and just watch a movie. You don't want to. You don't want the movie to demand anything from you.
Right.
It's got great visuals. It's worth seeing Nicolas Cage and Idris Elba together. I hope that at some future time they get together and do another movie. Because based upon the few scenes they have in this movie, I think that they would be great if they was in like a buddy action movie or a comedy. All the way through.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm gonna echo a lot of that. I'm gonna add that it's not a bad movie, but it's also not a good movie. But it's a fun movie. It's one of those movies that if you've got nothing else to do and you just toss this on and you just kind of like, it's one of those movies you just kind of like, you're watching this movie for the action and the insanity. You're not really paying attention to the story. If you pay attention to the story, it kind of falls apart.
Nah. This isn't. Yeah, you don't watch it for the story. You watch it for the visuals and for the action sequences, which I repeat, they are good. The action sequence, there's a highway chase that's really good.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of fight scenes, like you said, the one with the Earth Mover. Mm-hmm. That's a great scene. Yeah.
You know what? I think if this movie had come out now, I think it would have been a lot more well received. But as it stands, this came out in like a world where Marvel hadn't really quite become the Marvel that we know now, and like the kind of like off the wall stuff that we see in like Deadpool and all that. That stuff was still, the audiences weren't ready for that. They still wanted like the more serious superhero stuff like The Dark Knight.
Exactly. I can see that. If this movie, and I agree with you 100%. If this movie came out now, this movie would be way more successful. Yeah. And it would be better received because now we're used to these type of movies. And not just you and me being, superhero fans. I'm talking about general audiences.
Right.
Because, back when this came out, general audiences, they looked at this, they said, well, who's this guy with the flame? People didn't, well, I don't understand. What is this about? Is it a horror movie? Is it, they didn't know what to make of it.
Right.
But if it came out now, people would say, oh, yeah, well, first of all, they say, oh, well, it's Nicolas Cage. Okay, well, I want to go see it. But now they're used to that type of images and used to these type of characters. So it wouldn't be a thing where people would look at it and say, well, I don't know what that is. I don't want to take a chance on that. They would.
Yeah, definitely. And also, if it was made today, I think Neveldine and Taylor would have had the freedom to just kind of like cut loose with it as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think they could have made it like an R-rated movie, which I do. I think if they were able to push the envelope a little bit more with this one and make it an R-rated movie, I do think that it would have been a better movie.
Yeah, in a weird way, this movie was kind of ahead of its time.
Yes, it was. It was. You know what? I'm feeling generous tonight. Yes, I'm gonna go along with that.
Okay. So we're throwing the ball back to you now for the next movie. So what do you got in mind?
Okay. Now, this is a movie that you and I had talked about before, and since we did animation, I'm kind of like in an animation groove now.
Okay.
And we had talked about this movie, so we did Marvel. So the next one we're going to do is DC. We're going to do Suicide Squad, Hell to Pay.
Okay, sounds good to me. I think that's still on Hulu, actually.
I believe it is too. That's why I wanted to do it because I looked it up. I said, and also I'm still looking up. I haven't done it yet, but I want to look up that other movie that I was talking about before, Dr. Mordred.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, I want to look that up and make sure that's available before I make that my next pick. But like I said, since we had so much fun with the Hulk versus animated, last time around, I said, well, let's go with another animated movie. And we had talked briefly about Suicide Squad, Hell to Pay, which I keep trying to convince people to see, but none of y'all people won't listen to me. Nobody will listen to me when I tell them Hell to Pay is a great movie.
Oh, it is. Like, I mean, they did that first one with the Assault on Arkham, which was kind of like meh. But this one was really good.
Oh, yeah. This one was great. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I keep telling people who didn't like the live-action Suicide Squad, I keep telling them, well, know what? Okay, if you didn't like that, watch Hell to Pay. Oh, yeah. I don't want to. What? You don't want to see? Oh, okay. So now, since you guys didn't want to listen to it, now you got to
hear us talk about it.
Right. Since you didn't want to listen to me before, you're going to have to listen to me now. So, damn it.
Now the grumpy old man's coming through.
Yeah, damn it.
Also, one other quick announcement, but last week Derek talked about my other podcast, Japan on Film. Next episode, Derek's going to be on that show with me, and we're going to be talking about the Japanese and the American versions of Unforgiven, because several years back there was a Japanese remake of it.
Yep, and as a matter of fact, I've got I ordered the DVD some time back. It's still in the wrapper. I'm going to crack that bad boy open tomorrow and watch it tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay, so that should, actually, by the time you guys listen to this, that podcast should also be out as well. So go ahead and head over to japanonfilm.com, and you can listen to us talk about the Japanese remake of Unforgiven and a little bit about the original too.
Yeah, because I want to watch the original also, so that's on my docket for I have to go get my car washed, and then after that, that's going to be my afternoon. I'm going to watch Unforgiven and, both versions of Unforgiven.
Mm-hmm. All right, great. So head on over to Superhero Cinephiles on Facebook, join our group, hop into the discussions, and we just have like a good time over there. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram, Super Cinema Pod on both of those. And head over to patreon.com. You can toss us, become a patron, become a subscriber. And also, if you don't want to subscribe, but if you just want to help us out, show us some support, then go over to the website, superherocinephiles.com. Click on the link for any of the movies. You can rent them through Amazon, or once you click on the link, just go shop on Amazon in general, because we will get a little bit of a affiliate kickback for anything you buy if you use our links.
All right.
All right. Derek, thanks again, and we will talk to you next week when we watch Suicide Squad: Hell to Pay.
Thank you, as always. It was a pleasure, and like I said, I always appreciate you, because I probably would have never watched this movie again if you haven't recommended it and made it the subject of this week, and I found myself enjoying it a lot more than I thought I would. Thank you.
Anytime. All right, that's it for us. We're getting out of here. Thanks. Remember, wash your hands. If you go outside, wear a mask.
Okay, good night, God bless, and stay safe.
Thanks for listening to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. If you have any questions or comments about this or any other episode, or if you have a superhero movie or TV show you'd like us to cover in a future episode, you can email us at superherocinephiles@gmail.com, or you can also visit us on the web at superherocinephiles.com. If you like what you hear, leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. Each review helps us reach more potential listeners. You can also support the show by renting or purchasing the movies discussed, or by picking up our books, all of which can be accessed through the website, as well as find links to our social media presences. The theme music for this show is a shortened version of Superhero Showdown, a royalty-free piece of music courtesy of FezleonStudios.com.